Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Kind of a busy time for our outdoors friends, of everybody who partakes in the outdoors, and probably a busy time for our guest too, Mr. Jake Bolks, who is joining me in studio. How you doing, sir? Good to see you.
Doing pretty good.
You still bragging about your brackets a little bit, or?
I haven't been paid yet, so waiting for that. But
come on now.
Yeah, it was a good year.
So I mean, we've got spring turkey that started. I know the kiddos had the first crack at it last weekend, but period A began just yesterday, right? Wednesday?
Yeah, just yesterday.
So, and then everything's kind of kicking off there. We've got opening fishing coming up in a couple weeks. I did see this from the DNR, kind of a new online tool, the Fish Finder tool from the DNR.
Yeah, I actually just noticed that this morning too. I was going to look at it.
Yeah.
We didn't get any heads up on it, so I'm not exactly sure what it is yet, but it looks interesting.
I was reading a little bit about it this morning, and I think it's a cool feature where it tells you kind of where shore fishing locations are at, where some boat ramps are at, and this is probably what you'll really like, the regulations for certain lakes.
Ooh, that would be nice.
You know, for certain, because as you've mentioned a few times too, I mean, there's different lakes or waterways that have different types of regulations involved. So, I mean, that would be, I would imagine, very easy or very beneficial for a fisherman, fisherwoman to go and just easily check that on their phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at it here. It does look pretty nice, kind of like a version of the Hunt Wild we had back in the day.
Yep, exactly. So definitely,
nice.
Put that in the back of your mind if you guys or gals are getting ready to head up to the waterway.
Tool for the toolbox for figuring out what you can do, where you can do it, stuff like that.
How often, and this might be kind of a difficult question, but like with fishing regulations, is there a lot of changes every year because of the different waterways and such, or is it?
I wouldn't say a lot, but there's definitely changes every year. So, depending on, like, the spring hearings was a rule year. So,
yeah, our headphones are not great over there. That's why we're moving studios.
No, that's fine. So, it was like a rule year this year. So there will be like more changes coming probably next year than we had this year. There's usually a little here or there, but nothing crazy. But to your point is like you always want to check. I was actually just kind of looking through the rigs, seeing if there's any changes locally, and there's not much this year, but you just never know. So especially if you're going somewhere north or south or on a border water that you don't normally fish every day or every month or whatnot, definitely check it out.
You mentioned the border water, so with opening weekend coming up in a couple weeks, what's it like for, like, I'm thinking Mississippi or Lake Michigan, or I know that's maybe Lake Michigan's kind of on the other end of our state and such, but I mean, is that one of those fine areas too where on one side it's Wisconsin and the other is Minnesota for the Mississippi? Yeah,
so the border waters generally have like an open season, a year-round season for most species, minus some specialty game fish like sturgeon or maybe walleye or something like that. But for the most part, it's a year-round season, so you don't get that big rush of sportsmen going out fishing, boom, that first weekend in May. That's generally more your inland lakes.
Okay.
Because those are the waters that you've either been pan fishing or you just haven't been on it yet. So a lot of the more traditional like rush would be that inland water. Otherwise, a lot of people like on Lake Michigan and the tributaries on the Mississippi River, they've already probably hit the high point of like the perch spawn and the walleye run and all that kind of stuff. And the opening weekend is just another weekend for them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Ready for some questions?
Oh, I always love questions.
So we have a texter coming in. If I get a turkey in my first couple weeks of the season and there's still tags available for the back end, am I allowed to buy another tag and go out again?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, great question. So, some species like fish have daily bag limits and possession limits. So if you hit that possession limit, you're done no matter what until you eat those fish or whatnot. Turkeys, deer, I guess not bear because you get one bear tag, but turkeys and deer, as long as there's bonus tags available, you can keep going and fill in those tags. The key is you got to follow the rules in the sense of like if you're lucky enough to have already harvested a spring turkey yesterday or this morning and your next tag isn't until like 4 or 5 weeks from now, you got to wait 4 or 5 weeks. You can't just go out next week and dump another one, you know.
So let's say like at the back end of the season, say there's a couple left, and say that's the tag that you have. Say I go Wednesday, that Memorial Day week or weekend or whatever. Yeah. I get one. Could I buy one immediately and go? Okay.
As long as you're entitled to buy one a day.
Okay.
So you could start stacking them up now. You know, you could buy 5 in the next 5 days, and then you have 5 for that week, and then you could go out and shoot 5 in a day if you're lucky enough. You know, so as long as you have a tag and it's open season, you can still hunt it until either the season's over or you're out of tags or they're sold out.
With turkey season, another question: is there any restrictions on what type of firearms or I guess weapons to use?
No, that's a great question. So, it's always been shotguns and archery equipment. You've always been able to use shotguns and archery equipment. Recently, air guns have become legal, so you can use air guns, but no matter what type of gun you're using, whether it's a traditional shotgun or an air gun, you still have to use ammunition that is more than one projectile. So you can't use like a slug in either of those weapons, which is why you can't use a rifle. You have to use a shotgun. You have to use an air gun that's capable of holding ammo that shoots multiple projectiles. And they make ammo for air guns like that. But, you know, your classic turkey load is what you have to shoot them with.
Have you heard of anybody having a lot of success using air guns?
They're still new. I know people have done it. I think I've seen articles in the outdoor news describing it and stuff like that. We've run into a few air guns throughout the last year, you know, during the deer season and this and that. I think they're still pretty highly priced, so that probably keeps some of us out of it, especially when you got, I mean, like I got my classic 870.
Yeah.
It works. It kills a bird every year. And it's like, I don't really know why I need to, you know, change to an air gun. But if you're getting into it new or you want to change or you find that interesting, you can definitely go out and get one.
I'm still thinking of like the old pump air guns, like the 177,
right?
You know, those type of ones. So,
yeah, it's like, crazy that technology in everything these days. I mean, it's constantly changing and upgrading, and sometimes the laws allow for it, and sometimes the laws don't.
Another question: do you register turkey the same way you would if it's a deer, either online or by phone?
Yep, 100%. Same rules as deer hunting. So you have till 5 p.m. the day after the harvest. By phone, by internet would be the only way to do it.
This question is there anything that I should keep as proof that I got a turkey in case somebody questions it? I don't know if they're referring.
Sure. So like, when we kind of switched into this process, there was a couple years where you had to keep the confirmation number that came with it. You had to write it out on the paper tag or be able to present that. Not anymore. The system now and the laws now are just you buy a license, kill a bird, register it by 5 p.m. the day after the harvest, and then you're done. You don't have to write down the confirmation number on the packages or put it on your fridge or anything. Do I encourage it? Yeah, why not? Because if for whatever reason a warden stops by and it's like, hey, I got this complaint, or you know, you're at the gas station and you know you got turkey blood or something leaking out, and the game warden says, hey, what's that going on? He'd be like, yeah, here it's registered. We have the ability with our phones and our apps that we can look it up and see, you know, that you got it registered and stuff. So we have that ability, which is why you don't need to. But just like turkey, deer, fish, if you're fishing, you know, write what kind of fish you have on the packages before you put them in the freezer. Those are all things that just show that you're trying to show, I guess, that you have legal fish, legal game, legal whatever, and that it's not taken in violation.
Another texter staying with turkey. Is there any regulations or rules when it comes to decoys for turkey hunting?
You can't use electronic stuff. You can't use live decoys. You can't go tie a turkey out there. But other than that, you know, if you go and buy, you know, the silly Jake or whatever from Fleet Farm or whatever you have, it just can't be like, you can't use electronic calls. You can't bait them. You can't put anything live out there.
So there's like no max, like you can only have like 4 decoys.
Oh, sure. Like no, you could go put a whole flock out there if you want. So just litter them up.
Kind of like duck hunting, you just get the bag out and throw them out there.
Yeah, no, I definitely hunted with people where we've joked about, everyone brings 2 or 3 and you're all sitting there, you're like, well, do we use 1 or should we just put them all out there, Should we just have 10 decoys out? Yeah, so there's different schools of thought depending on how the birds are acting and the time of the spring and stuff. But there's no limits on the amount of decoys. That's a good question.
So with that, you mentioned the flocks and that. This is just something I thought of. Because anybody who's gone turkey hunting or maybe watched it, sometimes turkeys can be close together out there, right? Shotgun and that. What does, I think you know where I'm going with this. What does happen if you get 2 of them and you only got the 1 tag?
No, really good question. So basically, if you end up harvesting more animals, in this case turkeys, more than you have tags for, then the best thing to do is immediately just kind of stop, catch your breath, and then self-report to either our tip line, our customer service line, or if you know the local warden, or Google the local warden's number, give them a call. So the youth turkey season was last weekend, and we've already got, between me and Ryan, the other Eau Claire warden, we've got 5 or 6 calls of parents or youth calling and saying, hey, I didn't have the right, I had the wrong tag, or I was in the wrong zone, or I shot 2 birds. I didn't see the one behind it, We teach it in Hunter Ed. I tell people out in public, and obviously we're talking about it right now, is like, if you make a mistake, we're all going to make it. Just give us a call, because we can work through it. In all those circumstances, like, I'm not going to say 100% for the rest of my career, every self-report will be a warning, because I don't know what it's going to be until it comes. Right. But I don't think I've ever written a ticket for it, because you're trying to do the right thing. You made a mistake. You're learning from it. And we can work through it. So like in all those circumstances, we were able to work through it. We were able to get the correct tag so they could get registered, or just got them registered late with warnings and stuff like that. So we were able to work through it, especially with the youth. So it's a lot better if we can talk through it when it happens versus if we have to come knock on your door in 2, 3, 4 months and be like, hey, word is.
Right.
And then especially if you then try to deny it, then it's like, well, our hands are kind of tied. So if a mistake happens, it's going to happen. Give us a call. We'll work through it.
It's kind of like when you're a parent and you're telling your kid, if you tell me now,
right,
sort of thing.
Right. And sometimes it's hard to believe that. It's like you think they're just tricking you into telling you what. In our world, that's not the case. Like we don't wake up every morning going like, oh, whose turkey can we take? That's not it at all. Yep. We're just want to make sure everyone's got their licenses, having fun, being safe, and we're, registering the birds legally and stuff like that. So we have those numbers so wildlife can use it to give out quotas and tags for the following year. We can work through accidents for sure. It's the intent where we figure out how to handle the situation.
And I know I didn't get a chance to ask you this last week, but it's kind of not out in your area, but we did have a couple people, and I think because there was a news article about it in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel about turkey tags and the quota and that sort of stuff. And, like how come, when I put my name in for the drawing, I don't get it, but then they have all these bonus tags. Well, there was a really good article in the Journal-Sentinel that kind of explained it, and I know the DNR's kind of looking at it. The rule makers are looking at it, because kind of what they were saying is like people get drawed, but then they don't buy it. Yes. So it's kind of it's a process. Throughout the whole thing. There's a process.
So. I have heard conversation about changing up aspects of it, or kind of making it more similar to like bear hunting, so you don't lose. You don't lose those tags, basically, for all these people that pay the $3.50 or whatever it is, $4, and then they never draw that awarded tag then.
Right.
So I think there's conversation on making it so those don't just get kind of turned into tag soup per se.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there's a good piece I know I think we put up on our Facebook page last week.
Definitely read through it then. I have heard some other wardens talking about it and stuff, and I get it. So definitely get it.
We got some fishing ones right now. I
was just saying it definitely is going to feel like that today. 60 degrees before this little storm comes through, but it's going to be a nice day this morning.
I need to find out, too, if we are going to have a storm. We have baseball practice, so I got to know if we're going to have it or not.
Yeah.
I did see, I think somebody posted that Chi-High's JV game moved up, so I'm like, oh, boy.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at it before. I think we're going to get some rain tonight.
Yeah, probably needed to with the dry weather.
Yeah, it's been a little dry. There's been a bunch of, I know we're going fishing, but there's been a few wildfires already this year. Nothing that's like ginormous minus the one on the other side of the state, but the fire staff, the foresters are out and they're working, and they're cutting off a lot of these before they get big enough to make the news. But there's been lots of wildfires every day, so be mindful of that. So we need the rain.
Yeah, we do, definitely. And I just want my yard to look green now.
Yeah.
So
it's spring. Let's get green.
Yep. All right. So texter asks, is it still a max of 3 poles per fisherman?
Yes. So the statewide rule is 3 lines, lures, or baits.
Okay.
So I think we talked about it before. So if everyone's sitting at, in the truck going, well, we know this, but in case you haven't heard it, so it's not necessarily 3 poles. We generally, I'll discuss it that way because most of us just put 1 hook at the bottom of each pole, each line. But the law is lures, 3 lures, baits, or lines, because you can put multiple hooks on 1 line, and then if you tie 3 hooks 2 feet apart and put a minnow on each one and throw it out, then you hit your 3 hook limit. So and that's only 1 pole. So the short answer is yes, it's 3 per person, and whether it's 3 baits, 3 hooks, or 3 lures, however you define it. And they say baits and lures because like a Rapala will count as 1, even though there's multiple treble hooks on it. As long as it's together, they'll count it as 1 bait or lure.
So like if somebody, I don't know why they would do this, but just tied a treble hook at the end of their line and put a worm on there, would that count as 1 hook?
Yep, that's
3
just 1. The
Okay.
treble's 1. Just like if you grabbed a Rapala and it's got a treble in the front, treble in the middle, treble in the back, that's 1 bait. So you could have 3 lines with that. That's generally how people troll.
Yep.
Again, where what we see where people get in trouble, whether it's intentional or unintentional, is they'll take 3 poles and then they'll tie multiple hooks at different depths on it, and then put worms or crawlers on different depths, and now they're at either 6 hooks or 9 hooks depending on how many they tie on each, and that's common on like river fishing and stuff like that. So
Gotcha.
but for the most part, the general rule is 3. There's different parts in the state where it might be less on specific lakes if they're trying to manage it for trophy fishing or trout fishing or this or that. So again, just look at the rigs depending on where you're going.
Another question revolving, is muskie fishing open statewide in a couple weeks, or is it just half and half?
Yeah, it's still kind of divided up. So depending on where you're going, you're going to have to just look at the regulations, go to the general inland rules in the back. You could look at some of the border water stuff, but most of the stuff you're going to want to look for is in the back of the book, back of the regulations, because there's different openings depending on if you're in the south or the north. So take a look at that. Kind of like bass, when there's a catch and release season up north, kind of like northern and stuff like that. There's a little difference when it comes to the south versus the north for muskie, bass, and northern. So just look into that.
I remember that always as a kid because I always liked going bass fishing, and I think we were always right at that line. I was like, I don't know if it was Highway 64 or somewhere around there, but
usually Highway 10 is pretty
10,
common.
Yeah.
Pretty common.
When does
here.
north start? Maybe that's the answer. Highway 10, if it's the fishing regulations for Wisconsin.
Right.
So
yeah, definitely look at that.
Because it says here, muskie northern zone harvest May 24th. Southern is May 3rd.
Yeah. So, and just if it's just because it says harvest, you have to look where it says catch and release. If it says catch and release, then you can go out early, before the harvest and catch and release. But if it just says, harvest season starts on this date, that's also the catch and release season. Like it has to specifically say it has its own catch and release, like bass.
Gotcha.
Like bass will say it has its own catch and release season.
It does right there. Yep.
Yep. So you got to be mindful of that. You can't go early for muskie, if it doesn't have a catch and release on that lake or that region.
This might be a stupid question. I don't know.
No stupid questions, Dan. It never is.
I've never heard. I'm sure it has. I've never heard. Has anybody like caught muskie just for the fillets? You know what I mean? Like,
like to eat them?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely still
because like walleye and panfish, that.
There's
even
still,
pickling northern.
Yeah. It's just like how some people they'll go catch a sturgeon because they love smoked sturgeon.
Yep.
There's definitely people. I would say when I generally talk with the people that like keeping them, they're usually more the older individuals, kind of just like a fish is a fish to eat, not so much as a trophy. But
right.
There's people that definitely still go out and catch them and keep them and stuff like that. And I don't think, keeping a muskie here or there, obviously it's a trophy sport and this and that, and it might be sacrilegious, but it's not going to hurt the population, and it's not going to damage it. So
Texter asks, for the opening of fishing weekend, is it 12:01 that morning of is it May 3rd then? Would it be?
Whatever that Saturday is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's not unless for some reason there's like a refuge that has a specific start time or something, it's that morning, and there are plenty of people around here that line up at some of the spots.
Really?
And at 12:01, they start casting. So the last few years I've actually ended up starting my fishing opener at 12 o'clock too, like
no
working
kidding.
it, because there's plenty of people out at that hour.
I would guess I figured a few, but maybe
enough to get us out of bed at middle of the night to go work it. So I was
a lot of
surprised.
shore. Does some people
mostly
go out
shore?
Okay.
It's mostly shore fishing. It's mostly in areas that are like refuges or rivers that have been closed. And, and there's limited access, so they want to be the first ones there that day. So it makes sense.
Another texter asks, is there any regulations or rules when it comes to what kind of bait you can use? For example, if you're catfishing, is there any sort of things that you're not allowed to use for bait to attract a catfish?
Yes, there are some things that are illegal, but it's kind of complicated. The easiest thing is like if you buy stuff from a bait shop, you're going to be able to use anything there, especially any of that prepackaged stuff. You're fine. It's good to go. Some people talk about chumming fish and this and that, and technically, if you put something in the water, like a big bag of something that you want to quote unquote try to chum for it, as long as you pull that bag out and it has most of that ingredient still in there, or the big chunks of it, and if all that oil and scent disperses, that's fine. But you can't just go like grab a bunch of fish and cut them up and throw them in the water, because it would be considered littering, like if you're just trying to chum the waters. Mostly what we see people doing, especially around catfishing, is like they want to use bluegills.
That's what I was going to follow up and ask.
And so you can use, like, if you catch a bluegill on that water body that day and you cut it up, you can totally use that. It just counts towards your daily bag for bluegill, for your panfish. But what you can't do is you can't transport fish away from the water bodies and use them on different water bodies as bait.
Gotcha.
Because that could spread different aquatic invasive diseases, or species and diseases. So there is a method on how to like freeze them, and I think you can use like borax and do all this stuff, which and there's literature on our website on how to do that, but to me it seems like way too complicated just to use a bluegill from a different lake. So I always just say get something from the bait store, or catch that fish on that water body that day, cut it up, use it as part of your bag limit, and then fish with it. Don't catch a bunch of bluegills on Half Moon Lake and then go up to Lake Wissota the next day with a bunch of dead bluegills, because that would be a violation.
Is there any rules? Because I know we talked about this with ice fishing quite a bit. If they would catch a fish and kind of throw it on the ice and such, and that's a no. Is that the same for like with no ice? If you're on the bank and that you can't, even though like the fish are part of the environment, you can't just like catch a fish, and if you don't want it or don't like it and it's dead, you can't just throw it back in there. Or cutting it up for that catfish.
Or like if you're cutting it up, if you use it for bait, that's fine, but the rest of it you need to dispose of properly. The biggest reason for that is just like in the past, when that wasn't illegal, there'd be fish parts all over where people are fishing. There's dead fish in the rocks. There's people downstream that have parts floating up to them and stuff like that. And it's like, yes, they'll deteriorate and this and that, but now you got dead stinking fish that are all cut up right around all the other fishermen and stuff like that. So there's like the litter aspect, there's the sportsman's aspect of it. So, and some people, right, wrong, or indifferent how you feel, some people are like, oh, I don't like this type of fish, so they bash it in the head and they throw it in the river. Well, most fish, 99.9% of the fish in our waters around here are supposed to be there, and they serve a role in the ecosystem. Whether you like them or not, whether you think they're native or not, they serve a role, so you can't just kill a fish and throw it back. It's not really fair to the fish.
Yeah, right. Is there any, because was that last year, a couple years ago in Chippewa River, was it the invasive carp?
Yeah, so that's
something?
why I say 99.9.
Yeah.
Just last year, and it's still, I think there was sensor that went off that showed that they're up in like the Black River now.
Okay.
So basically any tributary, any water that connects to the Mississippi has the potential of having those silver carp, big-headed carp, whatever you want to call them, into their water bodies now. And yeah, they've had a few up here in Eau Claire, and then it seems like they went back down into the river. Luckily for us up here, the Altoona Dam, the Eau Claire Dam are a pretty fortified wall. It's never going to be high enough where fish can go back and forth. So unless someone is kind of evil and hand moves an Asian carp, we shouldn't have them go, up into Altoona, up into the Chippewa any further. So those man-made structures should do a little bit of help with that.
Yeah. So again, don't move one fish to another.
Don't move the fish. There's a lot of invasive species. We've actually found like some rusty crayfish over here that take over the, it's not the most exciting topic, but everything in the ecosystem has a role. And when we're finding all these rusty crayfish and people are ordering crayfish from Louisiana for boils, but they get out and then they get into our water bodies, those fish can really take over, or those crayfish can, and then it eats up the local ones, which then eats up other stuff, and they could go after fish eggs. So it really puts a dent in the population. So it's really important not to move anything alive.
I got just maybe one or two more for you here. But, this one's my own because you're talking about that. I see stories. I remember, I don't know how many years ago, I think it was like a hunter in Minnesota shot a crocodile or like a big, alligator.
Yeah,
Have you ever run into anything like that?
I know the Dunn County warden seized an alligator a few years ago.
Really?
I can't remember exactly how it worked out, but I think the guy brought it back from Florida. And I think we were made aware of it or something like that. But there's definitely been times where we've had alligators and different weird exotic. I've heard like a couple different calls recently of like armadillos on the road.
Really?
And it just makes me think, I feel like people are bringing those back for like a joke and leaving them on the road to be like, oh, there's an armadillo in Prairie du Chien, but you never know, there's an exotic pet trade out there, and some animals are legally like born and bred in captivity, like alligators, like raccoons, like foxes, where people can go out and buy them as pets if they have the right permits and stuff like that.
Well, then I'm thinking of like, this was a long time ago, but 2008, I'm sure you remember this, but Lake Pepin when somebody caught a shark in there. Do you remember?
I was in high school in Minnesota, so no. Because
I got the picture right here. I was like, I had to see that.
They caught a shark?
Yeah, and I think Jake from State Farm, if you're listening, I think you were the one that first told it to me. Yeah, I was in Minnehaha Creek, Minnesota. Yeah, state DNR and park board officials. DNR biologists drive fish downstream to her. Okay. Yeah, there was a shark, like ice fishing. I think they caught it too, or something like that.
Yeah, I see it here. I couldn't
I don't know if so,
that
like,
one.
Come up from the Mississippi or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, unless it's a freshwater shark, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nature is a crazy beast sometimes. So
right?
Or somebody... It might have had a little help here, because again, those are, I went to someone's residence one time because I had a complaint of that they had a bunch of sturgeon in like basically not their bathtubs, but like swimming pools in the basement. So instantly I'm thinking, they're catching lake sturgeon out of the Chippewa and keeping them in there. And I went in there and I talked with the individual. It was really nice and showed me everything. And they're like, no, I went to this Arizona hydroponics website, and you can just order sturgeon, like these black Russian sturgeon, from the internet, and it's legal because it's part of like the pet trade and it's all captive stuff,
right?
But it's kind of crazy what you can maybe buy out there.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is okay. This is actually on the Pioneer Press though too, so there's some talk. Is it a joke or not? But I was
gonna say, was it did it come out on April 1st of 2008?
That's what I'm wondering. But then this is from the Pioneer Press. Some kid and his dad, what they first thought was a muskie jaw turned out to be a 10-inch wide jawbone from a sand tiger or a mako shark. This was on the Mississippi River, so maybe that's what I was thinking of more. I think.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of this stuff on here, so I have to go sleuth through the internet later. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff, there's definitely things, just like how mule deer can make their way over here, or cougars can go, when wolves are juveniles, I've seen some of the they'll go from in like a month or two. They'll go from here to the UP down through Illinois and back up. Like the animals can move. So what says a fish can't move up the river, up Mississippi? You know, like they can. So
Yeah.
anything's possible this day and age, it seems like.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, dude, we're out of time. That went by fast.
Always goes by fast in here.
Well, big thanks for stopping by and answering some questions here. And,
no, it's a lot of fun.
I know we won't be able to catch up next week and such, so best of luck turkey hunting.
Yeah,
Probably
no,
talk to
you
beforehand,
guys too.
so.
Everyone out there, it's day 2, and I know people. There's a lot of pictures. There's a lot of turkeys. So good luck to everyone out hunting this year, and when that opener comes in a few weeks, good luck there too. It should be a fun spring.
Definitely. All right, dude. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.